Letter 103 of Letters from Egypt by Lady Lucie Duff Gordon. Read for LibriVox.org into the public domain. To Sir Alexander Duff Gordon, Luxor, May 15, 1867. Dearest Alec, all the Christendom of Upper Egypt is in a state of excitement, owing to the arrival of the Patriarch of Cairo, who is now in Luxor. My neighbor, Michael, entertains him, and Omar has been busily decorating his house and arranging the illumination of his garden, and today is gone to cook the confectionery, he being looked upon as the person best acquainted with the customs of the great. Last night the Patriarch sent for me, and I went to kiss his hand, but I won't go again. It was a very droll caricature of the thunders of the Vatican. Poor Michael had planned that I was to dine with the Patriarch, and had borrowed my silver spoons, etc., etc., in that belief. But the representative of St. Mark is furious against the American missionaries who have converted some 20 Copts at Kous, and he could not bring himself to be decently civil to a Protestant. I found a coarse-looking man seated on a raised divan smoking his chibouk. On his right were some priests on a low divan. I went up and kissed his hand and was about to sit by the priests, but he roughly ordered a Kawas to put a wooden chair off the carpet to his left, at a distance from him, and told me to sit there. I looked round to see whether any of my neighbors were present, and I saw the consternation in their faces. So, not wishing to annoy them, I did as if I did not perceive the affront, and sat down and talked for half an hour to the priests, and then took leave. I was informed that the Catholics were nas mekassin, poor inoffensive people, and that the Muslims at least were of an old religion, but that the Protestants ate meat all the year round, like dogs, or Muslims, put in Omar, who stood behind my chair and did not relish the mention of dogs and the English religion in one sentence. As I went the Patriarch called for dinner. It seems he had told Michael he would not eat with me. It is evidently a judgment of a most signal nature that I should be snubbed for the offences of missionaries, but it has caused some ill blood. The Cadi and Sheikh Yussuf and the rest, who all intended to do the civil to the Patriarch, now won't go near him on account of his rudeness to me. He has come up in a steamer, at the Pasha's expense, with a guard of Kawasses, and of course is loud in praise of the government, though he failed in getting the Mudir to send all the Protestants of Kous to the public works, or the army. From what he said before me about the Abyssinians, and still more, from what he said to others about the English prisoners up there, I am convinced that the place to put the screw on is the Batar Chain Patriarch's Palace at Cairo, and that the priests are at the bottom of that affair. He boasted immensely of the obedience and piety of El Habesh, the Abyssinians. Saturday. Yesterday I heard a little whispered grumbling about the money demanded by the father. One of my Copt neighbors was forced to sell me his whole provision of cooking butter to pay his quota. This a little damps the exultation caused by seeing him so honored by the Effendina. One man who had heard that he had called the American missionaries beggars grumbled to me, "Ah yes, beggars, beggars, they didn't beg of me for money." I really do think that there must be something in this dread of the Protestant movement. Evidently the Pasha is backing up the Patriarch, who keeps his church well apart from all other Christians, and well under the thumb of the Turks. It was pretty to hear the priests talk so politely of Islam, and curse the Protestants so bitterly. We were very nearly having a row about a woman who formerly turned Muslimah to get rid of an old blind Copt husband who had been forced upon her, and was permitted to recant, I suppose in order to get rid of the Muslim husband in his turn. However, he said, "I don't care, she is the mother of my 2 children, and whether she is Muslim or Christian she is my wife, and I won't divorce her, but I'll send her to church as much as she likes." Thereupon the priests of course dropped the wrangle, much to the relief of Sheikh Yussuf, in whose house she had taken up her quarters after leaving the church, and who was afraid of being drawn into a dispute. My new little Darfour boy is very funny and very intelligent. I hope he will turn out well. He seems well disposed, though rather lazy. Maybrook quarrelled with a boy belonging to the quarter close to us about a bird, and both boys ran away. The Arab boy is missing still, I suppose, but Maybrook was brought back by force, swelling with passion, and with his clothes most scripturally rent. He had regularly run amuck. Sheikh Yussuf lectured him on his insolence to the people of the quarter, and I wound up by saying, "Oh, my son, whither dost thou wish to go? I cannot let thee wander about like a beggar, with torn clothes and no money, that the police may take thee and put thee in the army, but say where thou desirest to go, and we will talk about it with discretion." It was at once borne in upon him that he did not want to go anywhere, and he said, "I repent, but I am an ox, bring the courbash, beat me, and let me go to finish cooking the Sitt's dinner." I remitted the beating, with a threat that if he bullied the neighbours again he would get it at the police, and not from Omar's very inefficient arm. In half an hour he was as merry as ever. It was a curious display of negro temper, and all about nothing at all. As he stood before me he looked quite grandly tragic, and swore he only wanted to run outside and die, that was all. I wish you could have heard and understood my soirées au clair de la lune with Sheykh Yussuf and Sheykh Abdurrahman. How Abdurrahman and I wrangled, and how Yussuf laughed and egged us on. Abdurrahman was wroth at my want of faith in physic generally, as well as in particular, and said I talked like an infidel, for had not God said, "I have made medicine for every disease"? I said, "Yes, but he does not say that he has told the doctors which it is," and meanwhile I say Hekmet Allah, God will cure, which can't be called an infidel sentiment. Then we got into alchemy, astrology, magic, and the rest, and Yussuf vexed his friend by telling gravely stories palpably absurd. Abdurrahman intimated that he was laughing at Ilm al-Muslimin, the science of the Muslims, but Yussuf said, "What is the Ilm al-Muslimin? God has revealed religion through his prophets, and we can learn nothing new on that point, but all other learning he has left to the intelligence of men, and the Prophet Muhammad said, all learning is from God, even the learning of idolaters. Why then should we Muslims shut out the light, and want to remain for ever like children? The learning of the Franks is as lawful as any other." Abdurrahman was too sensible a man to be able to dispute this, but it vexed him. I am tired of telling all the placarayan of our poor people, how 310 men were dragged off on Easter Monday with their bread and tools, how in 4 days they were all sent back from Keneh, because there were no orders about them, and made to pay their boat hire. Then in 5 days they were sent for again. Meanwhile the harvest was cut green, and the wheat is lying out unthreshed to be devoured by birds and rats, and the men's bread was wasted and spoiled with the hauling in and out of the boats. I am obliged to send camels 20 miles for charcoal, because the Ababda won't bring it to market any more, the tax is too heavy. Butter too we have to buy secretly, none comes into the market. When I remember the lovely smiling landscape which I first beheld from my windows, swarming with beasts and men, and look at the dreary waste now, I feel the foot of the Turk heavy indeed. Where there were 50 donkeys there is but one, camels, horses, all are gone, not only the horned cattle, even the dogs are more than decimated, and the hawks and vultures seem to me fewer. Mankind has no food to spare for hangers-on. The donkeys are sold, the camels confiscated, and the dogs dead, the one sole advantage. Meat is cheap, as every one must sell to pay taxes, and no one has money to buy. I am implored to take sheep and poultry for what I will give. End of letter 103. Read by Sibella Denton. All LibriVox files are in the public domain. For more information, please visit LibriVox.org.